Some famous people die, some retire, and some simply vanish so completely it feels like history hit the delete key. Explorers walked into jungles, pilots flew into static, heiresses boarded doomed ships, and musicians disappeared with clues so obvious they almost feel sarcastic. These are the weirdest disappearances of famous people in history, where the evidence ends and the theories start behaving badly. 1. The Amazon rainforest is basically Earth's green paper shredder, enormous, humid, and very good at making humans disappear. In 1925, British explorer Colonel Percy Fawcett walked into the Brazilian jungle chasing his obsession, a mysterious lost city he called Z. He was not casually sightseeing with a compass and a dramatic hat. He believed an advanced ancient civilization was hidden somewhere in the Mato Grosso region, and he went in with his son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel to prove it. They sent one last message back to the outside world, then silence. No bodies, no clear trail, no satisfying ending. Disease, starvation, hostile locals, accident, jungle madness, take your pick. The most deliciously romantic theory says Fawcett found the city and simply stayed. Less romantic is that many rescuers who went looking for him also vanished or died, because apparently the Amazon was not done collecting side characters. 2. Sometimes history leaves a clue so obvious it feels like bad screenwriting. Jim Sullivan, a folk musician with a lonely, haunted sound, released an album in 1969 called UFO. The songs were full of desert roads, disappearing bodies, and strange hints of being taken away by something not exactly human. Then, in 1975, Sullivan drove his Volkswagen Beetle into the New Mexico desert and vanished like he was following his own lyrics too literally. His abandoned car turned up on a remote dirt road. Inside were his wallet, his clothes, his guitar, and boxes of unsold copies of that same eerie UFO album. But Jim himself? Gone. People get lost, people run away, but leaving behind your money, your instrument, and your own weird, alien-themed record collection makes the whole thing feel less like a disappearance and more like an invitation he accepted from somewhere off the map. 3. Jim Thompson had already lived enough lives for 3 men with better scheduling. He was an American architect, a former operative for the Office of Strategic Services, the wartime agency that came before the Central Intelligence Agency, and the man credited with reviving Thailand's silk industry after World War II. In Bangkok, he lived like a stylish spy king in a spectacular house he designed himself, earning the nickname the Silk King. Then in 1967, while vacationing in Malaysia's Cameron Highlands, he went for a simple afternoon walk and never returned. The search was enormous, with soldiers, police, trackers, and local guides combing the area. They found nothing. No body, no clothing, no useful trace. This was not some tourist who thought jungle sandals were a survival strategy. Thompson had intelligence training and real field experience. So was it an accident, kidnapping, assassination, or an old spy world ghost finally catching up? 4. Getting a huge landmark named after you sounds great until you remember Henry Hudson had to vanish horribly to earn it. In 1611, Hudson and his crew were trapped in the brutal ice of the Canadian Bay that would later carry his name. After a freezing, miserable winter, the crew decided their captain was no longer a leader but a problem with a beard. They mutinied. And instead of killing him quickly, which would already be bad enough, they put Hudson, his teenage son, and several loyal crewmen into a small open boat with almost no chance of survival. Then they abandoned them in ice-choked waters like they were tossing out bad cargo. No food, no rescue, no future. Hudson had mapped vast unknown regions, then disappeared inside his own greatest discovery. It is hard to imagine a more savage performance review from your employees. 5. Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance is the heavyweight champion of American missing person legends. As the fierce and famously corrupt leader of the Teamsters Union, Hoffa dealt with politicians, labor bosses, and organized crime figures like he was playing chess in a Shark Tank. After prison, he wanted his union power back, which was inconvenient for certain former allies who preferred him quiet, retired, and preferably not breathing. On July 30, 1975, He went to a restaurant near Detroit for what was supposedly a meeting with two powerful mob-connected men. Witnesses saw him using a payphone, irritated and waiting. Then he vanished. His car was later found, but Hoffa was not. For decades, the Federal Bureau of Investigation chased tips, rumors, confessions, driveways, fields, and construction sites. Nothing. The leading theory remains simple and ugly. Hoffa crossed the wrong people and became part of the landscape, possibly under concrete, which is a very mob way of saying goodbye. 6. Louis Le Prince should be standing in the same historical spotlight as Edison and the Lumiere brothers. In 1888, using his own single-lens camera, he filmed what many consider the earliest surviving motion pictures. He was preparing to unveil his invention publicly in New York, which could have made him the official father of cinema. Then history reached for the scissors. In September 1890, Le Prince boarded a train in Dijon, France, headed for Paris. His brother saw him enter his compartment. When the train arrived, Le Prince was gone. So were his luggage and his important camera plans. A man disappeared from a moving train before he could show the world moving pictures. Suicide was suggested. Murder was suggested. Rival inventors were definitely whispered about because when enormous fame and money are on the line, people suddenly become very creative with crimes. It is cinema's first great mystery, and the main character got cut from his own ending. 7. Being prime minister usually means you are surrounded by security, aides, journalists, and people whose job is to notice when you blink weirdly. Yet in 1967, Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt managed to disappear during a beach swim. He entered the water at Cheviot Beach, a place known for currents that treated human beings like loose receipts in a hurricane. Witnesses saw him go in. Then, he was simply gone. One of the largest searches in Australian history found no body and no useful trace. The official explanation was drowning, which is probably correct, but also deeply unsatisfying for a world that enjoys nonsense. So theories bloomed. Suicide? Assassination? The truly elite version says Holt was secretly working for communist China and was picked up by a Chinese submarine. Is it likely? No. Is it more cinematic than The Ocean One? Absolutely. 8. Thomas Boston. Corbett sounds less like a historical figure and more like someone invented by a novelist who had too much coffee. He became famous as the soldier who shot John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of Abraham Lincoln. But Corbett's own life was already wildly unstable. He was intensely religious, paranoid, and so terrified of sexual temptation that he once castrated himself with scissors in the name of purity, which is one way to overreact to a moral concern. After killing Booth, fame did not calm him down. It made him stranger. He threatened people, behaved erratically, and was eventually declared insane and placed in an asylum. Then he escaped, somehow got hold of a pony, and rode away into Kansas. That was it. He was never reliably seen again. The man who ended one of America's biggest manhunts closed his own story by vanishing on a tiny horse, because history occasionally writes comedy with a chainsaw. 9. Oscar Zeta. Acosta was not just the inspiration for Dr. Gonzo in Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He was a brilliant lawyer, Chicano activist, counterculture force, and professional chaos magnet. Acosta fought fiercely for his community, took on powerful institutions, and lived with the kind of energy that makes ordinary people need a nap just hearing about it. He also joined Thompson in some legendary drug-soaked adventures, which is not exactly a lifestyle built around calm retirement. In 1974, Acosta was in Mexico when he called his son and said he was about to board a boat full of white snow, probably referring to cocaine and definitely referring to terrible decision-making weather. After that call, nothing. No confirmed body, no clean explanation. Overdose, murder, cartel trouble, political enemies, all remain possible. Like his fictional alter ego, Acosta lived near the edge until one day the edge apparently moved. 10. Jean Spangler was a young Hollywood actress in 1949. close enough to success to taste it, but still stuck in the dangerous fog around the industry's edges. She told her sister-in-law she was meeting her ex-husband, then heading to a movie night shoot. She never came home. 2 days later, her purse was discovered in a Los Angeles park, and inside was a half-finished note addressed to someone named Kirk. It said she could not wait any longer, was going to see Dr. Scott, and that it would work best while Mother was away. Naturally, this turned the case into a gossip furnace. Was Kirk actually Kirk Douglas, who had recently worked with her? Was Dr. Scott connected to a secret illegal abortion, which was a real danger in that era? The police chased lead after lead into brick walls. Spangler came to Hollywood hoping to be seen, then disappeared into the city's darkest shadows. 11. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry wrote The Little Prince, a gentle, unforgettable story about love, loneliness, and looking beyond the obvious. His own ending, however, was anything but gentle or clear. In 1944, during World War II, he was an older pilot, still flying reconnaissance missions for the Free French Air Force because apparently being a literary icon was not enough danger for one lifetime. On July 31st, he took off from Corsica to fly over occupied France and never returned. For decades, nobody knew exactly what had happened. Mechanical failure, bad weather, enemy fire. In 2000, wreckage from his plane was found on the seabed near Marseille, solving the location but not the cause. Later, a former German pilot claimed he may have shot him down, though the evidence remains uncertain. The writer who sent readers toward the stars vanished into the sea, leaving history with one last unanswered page. 12. Amelia Earhart remains the reigning queen of historical disappearances, with a crown made of radiostatic and Pacific fog. In 1937, while trying to fly around the world, she vanished near Howland Island, and the most reasonable explanation is that she ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. But reasonable explanations are not nearly as addictive as the alternatives. Despite a massive search, no wreckage has ever been definitively tied to her plane. That vacuum created a whole ecosystem of theories. Some say she was spying for the United States, captured by the Japanese, and died in custody. But the strangest theory claims she survived, returned secretly to America, and lived under the name Irene Bolam as a New Jersey housewife. People even pointed to physical similarities. The idea that the world's most famous aviator ended up living quietly in suburbia is completely absurd, which is exactly why people refuse to let it die. 13. Michael Rockefeller was born into one of the richest and most powerful families in America, which usually means disappearing is not on the menu. But Michael was not chasing boardrooms, yacht parties, or polite conversations about trust funds. He was fascinated by anthropology and the remote cultures of New Guinea. In 1961, while collecting art and studying local groups, his catamaran overturned. Instead of staying with the wreckage, he decided to swim toward shore through dangerous waters. He was never seen again. Officially, he likely drowned. But the area he was trying to reach was home to the Asmat people, known historically for headhunting and ritual cannibalism. That led to the darker theory that Rockefeller reached land and was killed, maybe even eaten. It is the kind of story that sounds like a colonial nightmare whispered around a campfire. An heir to American wealth swallowed by a world his money could not control. 14. Connie Converse was writing painfully honest, sophisticated songs in the clubs and apartments of 1950s Greenwich Village long before the world knew what to do with that kind of female singer-songwriter voice. Her music was sharp, intimate, and decades ahead of schedule, which is a terrible business plan when you are alive and hoping for rent money. For years, recognition barely came. By the early 1970s, she was depressed, disappointed, and tired of being ignored by the universe. In 1974, she wrote farewell letters to loved ones, saying she needed a fresh start. Then she packed her Volkswagen and drove away. No dramatic crime scene, no villain in a trench coat, no ransom note. She simply erased herself. Nobody has confirmed what happened to her. Maybe she died. Maybe she built a new life somewhere. What remains is her music, haunting listeners like a voice from a room she locked behind her. 15. Solomon. Northup's life already contained more horror than most people could survive in fiction. He was a free black man from New York, a skilled violinist, and a husband and father when he was drugged, kidnapped, and sold into slavery in 1841. For 12 brutal years, he endured bondage in the Deep South before finally getting word to his family and winning back his freedom. He turned that nightmare into the memoir 12 Years a Slave and became a public abolitionist, speaking out against slavery with the authority of someone who had lived its cruelty. Then, sometime after 1857, the record of his life simply fades out. No clear death, no confirmed final chapter. Was he kidnapped again by pro-slavery enemies? Murdered because his story was too powerful? Or did he choose quiet anonymity to survive? The man who fought to reclaim his name disappeared from history a second time. 16. The Flannan Isles. Lighthouse mystery sounds like someone found a horror script floating in the North Atlantic. In December 1900, a ship noticed the lighthouse light was out on a lonely, storm-battered island. When the relief crew arrived, they found the place empty. The three keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur, had vanished. The details were pure nightmare fuel. A meal was left unfinished. One man's oilskin coat still hung inside, suggesting he had gone out into vicious weather without proper protection, which is not normal lighthouse behavior unless panic is driving the bus. The log reportedly describes severe winds and one keeper being emotionally shaken. No bodies were found. No final explanation appeared. 3 men had disappeared from an isolated rock in the sea, leaving behind a scene that felt violently interrupted, as if the ocean had knocked, entered, and taken attendance. 17. Barbara Newhall. Follett was the kind of child prodigy who makes adults feel like they wasted their youth blinking. Her first novel was published to praise when she was only 13, and she seemed destined for a dazzling literary life. But early genius can be a trap with nicer curtains. By 25, she was unhappily married, working as a secretary, and feeling as if her creative life had been crushed into office dust. In December 1939, after an argument with her husband, she left their apartment with just $30. Then she vanished. Her husband did not report her missing for 2 weeks, which is the sort of detail that immediately makes everyone lean forward. Did Barbara walk away and create a new identity? Did she take her own life? Was something darker hidden inside her marriage? The girl who once invented worlds on paper disappeared from the real one without leaving an ending. 18. Hale Boggs vanishing in 1972 was not just a tragedy. It was the kind of event that makes Washington suddenly remember how fragile important people are. Boggs was House Majority Leader, one of the most powerful politicians in the United States. He boarded a small twin-engine plane in Alaska with Congressman Nick Begich, flying from Anchorage to Juneau through weather that was basically nature saying, "Absolutely not." The aircraft disappeared. What followed was one of the largest search operations in American history, with military planes, ships, and rescuers scanning an enormous wilderness for more than a month. They found nothing. No wreckage, no emergency beacon, no bodies, no useful clue. Because Boggs had served on the Warren Commission investigating John F. Kennedy's assassination, conspiracy theories arrived immediately and unpacked their luggage. 2 congressmen disappeared into the Alaskan sky, and the sky gave nothing back. 19. Agatha Christie becoming the star of her own disappearance is almost too perfect, like if Dracula lost his keys in a blood bank. In 1926, Christie was dealing with deep personal turmoil after learning of her husband's affair. Then she vanished for 11 days. Her car was found abandoned near a lake, which triggered a massive search involving police, volunteers, newspapers, and even other mystery writers. Britain went into full detective mode. Then Christie was discovered alive at a luxury hotel, registered under the surname of her husband's mistress because subtlety had apparently left the building. Her explanation was amnesia. Maybe it really was a psychological collapse caused by stress and grief. Maybe it was a publicity stunt. Or maybe it was a brilliantly cold act of revenge against a cheating husband, staged with the precision of a woman who literally invented better mysteries for a living. We still do not truly know. 20. Judge Joseph Force Crater disappeared so famously that his name became shorthand for vanishing. In 1930s New York, saying someone pulled a crater meant they had disappeared completely, which is a strange legacy for a Supreme Court justice, but at least memorable. Crater was deeply connected to the corrupt Tammany Hall political machine, a world where favors, money, and secrets moved around like subway rats in expensive suits. On August 6, 1930, he had dinner with friends, stepped outside, hailed a taxi, and was never seen again. Investigators later learned he had withdrawn a large amount of money and destroyed documents shortly before disappearing. That does not exactly scream normal evening plans. Was he murdered to keep him quiet? Blackmailed? Running away with a lover? He became known as the Missinggist Man in New York, which is a wonderfully ridiculous title for a very dark mystery. 21. Dr. Dan Elias was not your average professor quietly losing glasses in his office. He was a respected anthropologist, survival expert, and old-school adventurer with the energy of someone born in the wrong century. In 1988, he entered the jungles of Vietnam searching for the Ngoi Rung, the so-called forest people, a legendary ape-like humanoid, often described as Vietnam's answer to Bigfoot. This was not some random tourist with binoculars and confidence issues. Elias had academic credentials and real wilderness experience, but the region was dangerous, dense, and still scattered with unexploded ordnance left from the war. He hired local guides, went deep into the jungle, and then vanished. The guide said he walked off alone and never returned. Did he suffer an accident? Was there foul play? Or did the creature he hunted find him first? That last idea is wildly unlikely, but admit it, history would love the irony. 22. Everett Ruess was a young artist, poet, and desert wanderer who treated the American wilderness like a religion with better scenery. In 1934, at only 20 years old, he rode into the canyon country of Utah with 2 burros and disappeared forever. He was not a standard missing hiker with a bad map and worse shoes. Ruess seemed drawn to the idea of dissolving into the land itself, leaving civilization like it was an embarrassing conversation. At his last known campsite, a mysterious carving was found, Nemo, Latin for nobody. Was that a farewell message, a poetic attempt to shed his identity, or just a dramatic young man being dramatic in a canyon? He may have fallen, drowned, or been murdered by rustlers. Nobody knows. But his disappearance turned him into a legend for every person who has ever looked at modern life and thought, maybe the desert has a better plan. 23. Bison Dele, born Brian Williams, was not built from the usual professional athlete template. He won a National Basketball Association championship with the Chicago Bulls, then retired at 30, walked away from millions, and chose travel, freedom, and ocean life instead. In 2002, he was sailing through the South Pacific on a catamaran with his girlfriend and the boat's captain. Also aboard was his estranged older brother, Miles Dabord, which in hindsight feels like a flashing red warning light the size of a lighthouse. Somewhere during the voyage, something violent happened. Dabord later appeared alone in Tahiti, using Dele's identity and sailing the boat. He claimed Dele, the girlfriend, and the captain died after a struggle, but his story was full of holes. Before authorities could get the full truth, Dabord died from an intentional insulin overdose. Whatever happened on that boat sank with him. 24. If disappearing after a crime were an Olympic event, D.B. Cooper would still be standing on the podium in sunglasses. In 1971, a neatly dressed man hijacked a Boeing 727 with a strange calmness that makes the whole story even creepier. He ordered a bourbon and soda, handed a note to a flight attendant, and explained that he had a bomb in his briefcase. His demands were simple: $200,000 and 4 parachutes. After getting the money, he let the passengers off, had the plane take off again, and then, at night, in stormy weather, over the forests of the Pacific Northwest, he jumped out of the back with the cash. He was never caught. Years later, a small bundle of the ransom money was found, which somehow made the mystery worse. Cooper did not just escape. He performed an exit so stylish it made law enforcement look like background extras. 25. William Cantello's disappearance is either a grim family mystery or the weirdest rebranding campaign in weapons history. In the 1880s, Cantello was a British inventor working secretly on a rapid-fire gun, the kind of machine that would change warfare and make everyone immediately less safe. Then he withdrew his money and vanished. Soon after, another inventor, Hiram Maxim, arrived in London and unveiled the Maxim gun, a revolutionary machine gun that made him rich and famous. Here is where the story turns from suspicious to soap opera with bullets. Cantello's sons became convinced that Hiram Maxim was actually their missing father using a new identity. They believed the resemblance and timing were too strange to ignore. Did Cantello die, flee, or get robbed of his invention? Or did he become Maxim and sell the future under a fresh name? It sounds absurd, but history has done dumber paperwork. 26. Wallace D. Fard. Muhammad was not just a religious leader to his followers. Many believed he was the physical incarnation of Allah, which is a difficult position to resign from quietly. In the early 1930s, he founded the Nation of Islam, combining black nationalism, Islamic ideas, and a powerful message of identity and self-discipline. He gathered devoted followers, including Elijah Muhammad, while keeping his own background wrapped in aliases, mysteries, and contradictions. Then, in 1934, after conflicts, police attention, and internal tension, he disappeared. One day, he was the central figure of a growing religious movement. The next, gone. Did he leave voluntarily and live under another name? Was he killed by rivals or enemies? Or, as believers claimed, did he return to a divine realm? Whatever the truth, the man who built a movement around revelation left behind one final revelation nobody could decode. 27. Roald Amundsen was one of those explorers who made ordinary danger look like a light inconvenience. He reached the South Pole first, navigated the Northwest Passage, and survived places where nature spends most of the year trying to delete people. So his end feels brutally ironic. In 1928, Italian explorer Umberto Nobile crashed his airship in the Arctic. Nobile was Amundsen's rival, and the two were not exactly sending each other warm holiday cards. Still, Amundsen joined the rescue effort. He boarded a French flying boat and took off into the Arctic to help save the man he disliked. Then his plane vanished. Some wreckage believed to be from the aircraft was later found, but Amundsen's body never was. The master of polar survival disappeared while trying to rescue a rival, swallowed by the frozen world he had spent his life conquering. 28. Felix Moncla's disappearance belongs in the category of cases where the official file probably made everyone in the room quietly uncomfortable. In 1953, during peak Cold War paranoia, United States Air Force pilot Felix Moncla was sent up from Kinross Air Force Base to intercept an unidentified flying object detected over Lake Superior. Ground radar tracked his F-89 Scorpion jet, closing in on the unknown target. Then the radar operators watched something deeply strange. The two blips moved closer, merged into one, and then the single blip continued on before disappearing from tracking. Moncla's jet was never found. No wreckage, no body, no normal explanation that felt satisfying. Maybe it crashed into the lake. Maybe radar created a misleading picture. But the spooky version is irresistible. A pilot chased a mystery object, and on the screen, the mystery object appeared to swallow him whole. 29. In 1944, Glenn Miller was not just famous. He was the sound of an era, a big band superstar whose music carried across dance halls, radios, and wartime memories. As a major in the United States Army Air Forces, he planned to fly from England to recently liberated Paris to prepare a Christmas performance for Allied troops. His small, single-engine plane took off into fog over the English Channel and vanished. No distress call, no confirmed wreckage, no oil slick, nothing. For an aircraft to disappear in one of the busiest, most watched stretches of wartime air and sea is deeply strange. Theories have piled up for decades: bad weather, mechanical failure, or perhaps being accidentally hit by Allied bombs dumped by returning planes. But none has fully closed the case. Miller gave a generation its soundtrack, then exited in silence, as if someone lifted the needle off the record. 30. Dorothy Arnold was basically a 1910 Manhattan celebrity before celebrities had Instagram accounts to ruin themselves more efficiently. She was wealthy, educated, socially prominent, and part of a powerful family. On a December day, she went shopping on Fifth Avenue. She bought chocolates, browsed bookstores, met a friend, said goodbye, and then disappeared into the city crowd forever. Her family, terrified of scandal, made the disastrously polite decision to hire private investigators instead of immediately calling the police. Precious time was lost while they tried to keep things respectable, because apparently reputation was more urgent than finding a missing daughter. When the press finally learned, the story exploded. Kidnapping, secret romance, suicide, and death from a botched, illegal abortion were all suggested. None stuck. Despite years of searching, no credible trace appeared. Dorothy Arnold walked through one of the busiest cities on Earth and vanished like New York itself had absorbed her. 31. Frederick Valentich's final radio call is one of those recordings that makes your skin quietly pack a suitcase. In 1978, the 20-year-old Australian pilot was flying a small Cessna over the Bass Strait when he contacted air traffic control about a strange aircraft near him. He described something shiny and metallic, with 4 bright green lights, moving at impossible speeds and hovering above him. The controller tried to identify it, but Valentich sounded increasingly confused. Then he said the chilling words, "It is not an aircraft." After that came 17 seconds of strange metallic scraping sounds before the transmission ended. Valentich and his plane were never found. No confirmed wreckage, no clear crash site, no neat answer. Maybe he became disoriented and crashed. Maybe he misread the lights. Or maybe, just maybe, his final broadcast captured something that had no interest in filing a flight plan. 32. Theodosia. Burr Alston was American political royalty, the brilliant daughter of Aaron Burr, one of the most controversial figures in early United States history. By 1812, her life had already been marked by grief, especially after the death of her young son. Hoping to reunite with her father in New York, she boarded a schooner called the Patriot in South Carolina. The ship sailed out and never arrived. Every person aboard vanished with it. The practical explanation is a storm, which is usually the ocean's favorite method of ending a mystery without paperwork. But legends quickly multiplied. Some claimed pirates captured the ship. Others imagined Theodosia surviving somewhere in captivity. The strangest story centers on a portrait of a beautiful woman later found in a boarding house, allegedly taken from a pirate vessel and believed by some to depict Theodosia. Her final voyage became a mixture of tragedy, politics, and ghost story. So now, I want the comment section to go full detective board. Which disappearance did we criminally leave out? And do not just type Amelia Earhart unless you are bringing a theory that can survive 5 minutes of questioning. Drop the missing person case that deserves a place in part 2. And if this video made you distrust oceans, jungles, small planes, and suspicious dinner meetings, hit like and subscribe.